Hi guys from Paxa Ljubljana. This is the 24th of March, the day of the liberation of Kosovo campaign by NATO. I'm here in front of the Serb Ministry of Defense and I'm not very happy with what they're doing. Obviously we should all defend our countries, that's important. You see now in the Ukraine crisis countries must be defended and that's very important. But what is Serbia doing, which feels surrounded by NATO members and then justified to spend 1 billion euro in defense, which is much too much, and it's aggression, preparation of an aggression against the neighbors which are all in NATO or secured by NATO, like Kosovo and Bosnia, and that's very wrong. We have to call Serbia, which is heavily subsidized by the European Union, so we build and fund and support the highways and the public infrastructure and the European Serbia. That's what we should do. But then the fiscal space is devoted for rearmament, and then the arms are bought from Russia and China. And that's of course very, very bad. We had just a military build-up in September 2021 by Serbia against Kosovo, with the Russian ambassador visiting Jarina, the front line or the border, and the Serbian troop build-up. And we have a lot of military threatening gestures, and that's in a country which we heavily subsidize, which is called a front runner and a very good EU candidate, which is now again in the Ukraine war, in the Russian war against Ukraine, not supporting Ukraine, but is neutral in a sense. And that's very, very bad. It's even actually not falling in line with the sanctions, but keeping the airspace open and all these things. And in this building there is also a Russian liaison office from the Russian Ministry of Defense. It's to my knowledge the only country in Europe which has a Russian military from the Defense Ministry liaison office in its own ministry. I mean, such a kind of a level of integration is outrageous. Then they are also training. I don't hope they will continue that, but up to now they were training in these Slavic Brotherhood maneuvers every year with the Russians and with the Belarusians, the Serbian army. That's outrageous. And additionally, they're buying weapons. They were training, doing maneuvers with the Belarusians until 2021, I think. I hope that is now stopped forever, but it's outrageous policy. And then they buy all these weapons, and they also have flirted with being member in the anti-NATO. Instead of joining NATO like everybody else in Europe should and will, also the Finns and the Swedish, this is the only country which is flirting with the CSTO, the Russian alliance, which is absolute outrage. It's very, very bad, and that's of course a big scandal. And they are always then building up military pressure against Kosovo. They have announced that they will prepare the mobilization, not mobilization, but they put them on notice, the reserve soldiers now recently, and that were all very big warning signs. I personally don't think it will come to war against Kosovo, but we must be prepared. And the Kosovars have to learn from the Ukrainians how to defend themselves with Bayraktars and with all these things, because the potential victim has to prepare itself militarily armed before. And that's, Serbia is a 4 times aggressor. And still today they are building this massive army. And here there's the photo of the recruitment drive for their military academy. And that's the situation, and that's not very good. So I call for suspending the EU candidate status of Serbia until they really want to join us, and then to offer them the euro as currency in exchange for your Kosovo recognition, and then of course NATO membership, because they were certainly a good contribution to NATO. And there is no danger in NATO. NATO is a peaceful alliance. And if the Serbs don't see NATO as a peaceful alliance, then they shouldn't be in the EU, because we are the same countries. 93% of the population is in NATO, of the EU. And if they want to join, an Austrian model is not available. Austria will also join NATO, and so will Finland, Sweden, and I'm sure also one day when the Turks agree, Cyprus and Malta and Ireland, and not to have here the situation that one country says, like the Austrians, and then in reality they build up their arms and they preparing a potential aggression and always force and threaten their smaller neighbors into compliance. It will anyhow not happen, but that's of course an outrageous policy, and I call to kick out the Russian military liaison office, to end this niche humanitarian logistic, in reality army center of the Russian army in the southern capital, southern town of Niš of Serbia. That must go. Then to end all cooperation with the military of Belarus and Russia, and no further maneuvers, breaking all MOUs, not to buy any weapons anymore from Russia and China, and promise that towards the EU in a contract, because that's all out with our money. It's outrageous. And then also to be very clear that there is a joint partnership action plan map. We need a map for Serbia, and we need also to make clear that Serbia, parallel to EU, has also to join NATO in order to make EU membership feasible, and Serbia officially to agree for Bosnia and for Kosovo to join NATO. This is what needs to be done in order to make EU membership of Serbia feasible. And I call for peace. But peace in Europe is only by NATO membership. Then we are all protected under the nuclear umbrella of America, and we are all safe and secure. And working with Russia is working with the enemy. Nobody who is working with Russia can work in the European Union or be in the European Union. That is very clear. So a lot to do for Serbia to be a normal European country, but I'm confident and optimistic it will achieve this. The turn to the West, the Westwende, it's possible, and I call for that to be a peaceful, full part of the European Union, of NATO, by the Euro, and end this Russian kind of pivot, which was so disastrous for so many centuries, and be a free European country inside NATO, EU, and the Euro. For European Serbia. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks from Pax Europiana. Bye.